Okay, let's just dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are doing a complete, ground-up, forensic deep dive into a truly fascinating case study from the Office Drama Stories universe. We're zeroing in specifically on the events of episode 87, which honestly is an absolute masterclass in how corporate risk actually operates in the real world. I want you to picture this scene for a second. It's early morning, the office hasn't even fully woken up yet. You know the vibe. The glass walls are just catching that cold blue-gray morning light. The coffee machines are barely warming up. And sitting right there on a desk is an object so incredibly boring, so entirely painfully routine that 99% of people would walk right past it without a second glance. But here's the kicker. That single, unremarkable training invoice was actually masking a massive systemic corporate betrayal. Today, we are going to break down exactly how everyday budgets can be weaponized to disguise control, and how a team of incredibly sharp individuals used nothing but a visible, mundane audit trail to expose an entire cover-up.
To really understand how this happened, we have to start with strategy lead Maya Carter. She operates on this one fundamental rule, and honestly, it completely sets the tone for our entire investigation today. Her rule is this: the dangerous documents never look dangerous first. It's such a simple sentence, but it cuts right to the absolute heart of how modern corporate cover-ups actually happen. See, we all have this Hollywood cinematic idea in our heads, right? We think a corporate villain is going to storm into a boardroom, or there's going to be a highly classified manila folder stamped with bright red ink sliding across a mahogany table. But Maya knows better. She knows that in a real functioning workplace, the absolute most dangerous things are camouflaged by administration. They are hidden right under the guise of everyday bureaucracy. Think about it. If you want to hide a massive risk, you don't put it in a secret vault with a laser grid. No, you put it in a budget line item that everyone just assumes someone else has already double-checked. I really want you to keep this specific philosophy in the back of your mind as we go forward, because it is literally the fundamental rule for everything we are about to uncover.
So, let's look at the actual crime scene. It wasn't a shredded hard drive. It was just a single contractor invoice, neatly booked under a completely harmless training budget code. Now, you might be wondering, why is this specific detail so absolutely crucial? Well, because a training budget is friendly. It's the good vibes budget. It implies investment in employees, skill building, corporate growth, and making everyone better. Literally no one questions a training budget. When a finance department wants to bury something highly questionable, they don't invent some suspicious new category like secret corporate ops. They slide it right into the middle of something universally approved and boring. But this seemingly boring object, this was the tiny thread that once pulled completely unraveled the entire company's illusion of a safe culture. The overarching lesson here for your own career, and this is a big one, is realizing that the most potent hiding spot in any corporate ecosystem is always plain sight.
This whole situation just brilliantly illustrates the massive disconnect between corporate theater and operational reality. Let's look at the official finance explanation. They claim this invoice was a temporary code for culture and alignment workshops. Just notice the language they're using there. Alignment, culture, workshops. These are incredibly soft, reassuring buzzwords designed to put people at ease, make everybody nod, and shut down any further questioning. It is the literal language of healing and business continuity. But then we have the hidden reality. The actual deliverable they paid for wasn't a workshop at all. It was a behavior risk summary. Let's call it what it really is: active surveillance. The company was literally using the warm, fuzzy cover of culture training to fund a covert program that monitored its own people. It's a really stark reminder to always look past the polished vocabulary of a corporate statement. You always have to ask, okay, but what is the actual tangible product being delivered here?
Okay, so with such a good cover story, how did the illusion actually crack? Well, it cracked because of operations coordinator Sofia Lane. Sofia did something revolutionary. She actually read the fine print. What's so vital about Sofia in this particular case study is that she is relatively new to the company. She hasn't yet been conditioned by the old corporate culture to just blindly ignore inconvenient details. She still genuinely believes that rules are meant to be read and followed. So while all the senior executives just skimmed that top page and signed off, Sofia kept reading. She dug in and found modified metadata. She found these quiet little routing notes that usually go completely ignored by the higher-ups. She noticed changed owner fields, and she read the tiny footnotes that literally everyone else skipped over. Sofia is walking proof that you do not need a high-level security clearance to find the truth in a company. You just need to be the one person in the room willing to sit down and read the fine print. Her fresh, unconditioned eyes exposed details that veteran employees had quite literally trained themselves not to see anymore.
Once Sofia found those weird anomalies, Maya Carter took the baton, and what she did next was build an undeniable systemic proof map. Guys, this is an absolute masterclass in how to handle confrontation in a corporate setting. Here is how she laid it out. Step 1, identify the object. Step 2, trace the owner. Step 3, verify the timestamp. Step 4, find the beneficiary. It is so methodical. Maya doesn't deal in office gossip, she doesn't deal in politics, and she certainly doesn't run around chasing people to get tearful confessions. She just follows the systems. By mapping the raw data into this exact, logical chain, she completely removes all emotion from the confrontation. Think about it. When you walk into a room with a map like this, there is zero room for an executive to talk their way out of it. They can argue with an opinion all day long, but they cannot argue with a verified timestamp that is directly connected to a documented beneficiary. This 4-step framework is pure gold. It's something you can take and apply to literally any complex problem in your own professional life.
But of course, when you start asking the right questions, the system always pushes back. Transformation Officer Adrian Vale actually pulls Maya aside in a hallway to give her a little warning. He says, "Be careful not to turn every inconsistency into a crisis." Now, let's break that down because this is incredibly insidious. It masquerades as mature career advice, right? It sounds exactly like a seasoned mentor just trying to protect a junior colleague from making a fuss and ruining her career. It's entirely designed to make the investigator feel like they are the problem, not the cover-up itself. It's a classic redirection tactic. But Maya doesn't take the bait. Her defense reframes the situation perfectly. She replies, "Truth is not damage. Hiding it was." Boom. That shifts the blame right back where it belongs. It reminds us all that uncovering a hidden risk isn't creating a crisis. The crisis was already there, quietly damaging the foundation of the company. Maya just turned the lights on.
Now we reach a really crucial turning point, and it's all thanks to executive assistant Nina Ross. Nina proved a golden rule of investigations. Background work always leaves foreground records. See, executives who try to hide their actions almost always forget one massive detail. They forget that the invisible work required to set up their secret meetings still leaves a forensic trail. To hire this shady surveillance vendor, someone had to actually book a conference room. Someone had to issue a visitor badge at the front desk. Someone had to print a draft note on the network printer. Nina, being brilliant, gathered all these seemingly mundane administrative receipts, the calendar exports, the draft notes, the visitor logs, and she placed them right into Maya's evidence chain. It so brilliantly illustrates that an invisible cover-up isn't truly invisible at all, as long as you know where the administrative breadcrumbs are dropped. Support staff like Nina often hold the literal keys to the kingdom because they manage the exact systems where all these messy footprints are left behind.
And speaking of footprints, IT audit specialist Jordan Price came in and pulled the exact log sequence. It went like this. Minute 1, user logged in. Minute 12, field changed. Minute 15, route approved. Minute 45, beneficiary accessed document. Look, uncovering the truth isn't some cinematic hacker magic. It's not a movie where you frantically type on a keyboard while green code falls down the screen and someone yells, "I'm in!" Real investigation is just patiently, systematically reading the raw sequence of digital events. When the executives in this case tried to squirm and argue that the logs needed, quote, interpretation, Jordan just pointed right back to this raw export. It's not a suspicion, it is a sequence. You literally cannot argue with the fact that at minute 12 a field was changed, and at minute 45 the beneficiary accessed the document. Boom! It completely removes the fog of office politics and replaces it with cold, hard, digital reality.
So, the crucial point of this whole ordeal is reached when the formal review meeting finally begins. And, as you might expect, the room immediately tries to soften the verbs. They want to rename the choices, and they ask everyone to please just think about the optics of the situation. The meeting quickly turns into pure corporate theater. But then, analyst Aisha Morgan drops a bomb. She asks a room-shrinking question. Who benefits if this stays classified as harmless? I really want you to think about that question for a second. Let it rattle around in your brain. It cuts through all the noise, all the corporate jargon, and all the performative concern. It forces absolutely everyone to look at the actual motive. If we all sit here and pretend this is just a normal training invoice, who wins? And conversely, who loses? Asking this specific question pivots the entire investigation away from boring administrative process and points it directly toward intent. It is the exact catalyst that brings us right to the climax of this entire explainer.
Aisha's question forces the shocking twist right out into the open. That friendly training code, the one absolutely everyone was told was for nice, team-building culture workshops, was a complete and utter lie. The actual deliverable was a behavior risk summary. But the true horrifying betrayal here is the target. The company was surveilling employees who had filed protected ethics questions. Just let that sink in for a moment. The company was literally using funds, disguised as culture and healing, to quietly monitor, track, and summarize the behavior of the very employees who were bravely trying to protect the company by reporting ethical issues in the first place. The invoice looked like training, but the attachment was targeted retaliation and surveillance. It is a stunning, massive breach of trust. And because of the trail Sofia, Maya, Nina, and Jordan built, the evidence is laid out so clearly that there is absolutely no escape for the executives who orchestrated it.
Faced with this completely undeniable proof, the natural instinct of the old corporate guard is, predictably, damage control. They offer a quiet, private apology. They just want to sweep it under the rug, shake hands behind closed doors, and promise it'll never happen again. But Maya Carter shuts that down with this incredibly powerful quote: "Do not quietly fix what can publicly teach." This right here is a fundamental ground-up shift in how to handle corporate wrongdoing. See, a private fix makes the current executives comfortable. It lets them save face, but it leaves future employees completely exposed to the exact same risk down the line. By flat-out refusing to let this end with a closed-door handshake, Maya ensures that the conflict itself becomes a permanent structural lesson for the entire organization. It's a brilliant reminder for all of us that true lasting accountability doesn't ever happen in the shadows. It happens in the light, where the entire system can actually learn from the failure.
And that brings us to the overarching philosophy of the entire Office Drama Stories universe: building a record-first culture. So what does that actually mean? It's defined as a workplace environment where conflict and decisions must leave a visible audit trail, and systems are explicitly designed to refuse to let one person stand alone. This is the ultimate shield against toxic office politics. Think about it. If you rely on a single, heroic employee to always catch the bad guys, eventually that employee is going to burn out, or they'll leave, or they'll just get silenced by management. But if you build a system, a true record-first culture, the system itself does the heavy lifting. The truth no longer needs permission from an executive to appear, because the daily workflow absolutely demands a visible trail. Institutional memory replaces individual bravery. And honestly, that is how you genuinely, permanently fix a broken corporate culture.
So how do we actually turn that lofty philosophy into a working reality? Independent board member Elise Warren steps in and institutes some highly actionable steps for systemic corporate repair. First, ban all surveillance-style deliverables outright. Just no gray area. They are gone. Second, require that all vendor scopes are fully visible to stop the shady trick of hiding risky tasks behind vague, friendly titles. Third, mandate that a trust committee must review any broad, easily manipulated budget codes like our infamous training budget. And finally, write the lesson permanently into the software workflow itself. Now listen, these aren't just fictional plot points for a story. These are real-world, highly effective corporate governance strategies. If you are a manager, an auditor, or an executive watching this explainer right now, take notes. These steps are a literal blueprint for how you can enforce accountability and protect your own teams from the exact kind of stealthy, administrative manipulation we've analyzed today. We wrap up today's explainer with this chilling, yet deeply empowering thought. The record did not raise its voice. It simply waited for someone patient enough to read it. I absolutely love this. The data, the truth, it was there all along. It didn't shout, it didn't cause a scene, it just sat there quietly in the metadata, buried in the routing notes, and hiding in the system logs, just waiting for Sofia, Maya, and Jordan to look closely. And this challenges all of us. Think about your own day-to-day. In your own workplace, are you skipping the fine print? Are you just accepting the polished, soft language explanations without ever looking at the raw sequence of events? The next time you see something crossing your desk that looks just a little too boring, or maybe a little too neatly packaged, I challenge you to become the patient reader. Take the extra 5 minutes. Look at the timestamps. Because as we've seen today, that is exactly where the real story is always hiding. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and I will see you next time.